So officially for the recording, this is the first ever event for the Fractional Exec Community. Thank you very much, Christelle, for volunteering to be our first and to allow us to record it and to walk through. Now, you wear many, many hats. I did a little bit of digging, as I kind of mentioned just previously, and I wanted to touch on a few of those before we kick off into your fractional journey and Proxi here. And the first one that I just mentioned before, and we'll have to string that in with how you met Shona, is your background in the film industry. And it appears to me from a very low representation so far, sure, but there's a strong affiliation with creative backgrounds.
Yeah, it was never done on purpose. So I started, I've always worked in tech. I've always been a tech marketer. I started in the video game industry in the late 90s. And, you know, kind of things building and so on. When I arrived in New Zealand, I had that experience within the entertainment industry. And one of the companies I worked for was a SaaS company delivering marketing analytics and insights for cinema exhibitors and cinema studios. So, but it's never been done on purpose. Yeah. Like I've done many different things. I actually like variety.
Yeah, I picked that up from your background. Yeah, there was definitely a theme on that. I saw Movio. That was what that company that caught my eye.
Yeah.
And I actually saw that there's another Movio that does text to video AI, but I wasn't quite sure if they were related. But
so
the next
company, that's the company both Christelle and I have worked for. So that's our
there you go. That's the connection.
Not together.
Different eras.
Yeah, I left maybe 6 months after Shona started or something like that.
Yeah, right. Nice. And you're also on the board for French Tech New Zealand.
Yes, I am.
Tell me about that organization. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a new initiative for New Zealand, but that's been around for a while. So La French Tech is a French government initiative to kind of help French tech companies expand and dominate the world, basically. So they put a lot of investment around this. And they've created some really amazing communities, started with France initially, and then they kind of branched out in the US. And now they're all around the world. So I've been involved with the French tech community since I've been in New Zealand for the last 12 years. And we were kind of doing informal meetups, etc. And then when we learned that they were actually opening La French Tech labelization to other, to countries and to other cities that were not French, we applied and we just got the label in January. So we did our first event actually last Tuesday, and our purpose is really to connect French and French-speaking communities within tech in New Zealand, and with, helping them kind of find investment and also take New Zealand companies into French-speaking markets. So it's actually a really cool community to leverage. Happy to share about that, with whoever is interested in this kind of markets as well.
Yeah, awesome. And one final background piece before I let you get on to the main piece. Tell me about your involvement with the Volvo Ocean Race. I saw that one in there as well.
Yeah. Well, I got to New Zealand. Sorry?
You're a deep water sailor from way back?
Absolutely not. I come from Burgundy. There is no sea around us, so I'm a land person. I absolutely not a sailor. But I got to New Zealand with my family after living for 2 years in Singapore. And it was quite complex to find a job when you were a new migrant 12 years ago in New Zealand. So because I had some free time on my hands and I had forked out my lovely children to childcare and school, I volunteered to be part of the staff for the Volvo Ocean Race. They had a corporate concierge service, and that's one of the companies I founded and sold when I was in France. So there was quite a strong tie with some of my previous experience. And so, yeah, I volunteered for it. I did that over the course of a week. It was plenty of fun. I met a whole raft of people from New Zealand government, including NZT, and that's kind of how I started my career in New Zealand, because it's all about relationships.
Totally. Look, it seems there's a few themes there, Christelle. You've worked in many different areas and you've built a strong community and stayed connected to them at every step along the way. Okay, thank you. That was probably mostly for my curiosity, so I appreciate you allowing me to indulge it. Yeah, tell me about your fractional journey and the wonderful collective of Proxi.
Absolutely. So we've kind of covered most of that, but what I wanted to really share with you is, beside, I've got a strong accent. Basically, how my journey as a fractional CMO started is really around when I was working at Movio at the end of 2017. I was working like crazy hours, based in New Zealand and working for a global business. It was quite strenuous. And I ended up burning out for a whole raft of reasons. And I just quit my job and decided to move on. I took a healthy break. And during that time, I kind of thought, what is it that I'm going to do? And I realized that what I did for Movio, when I joined, we were like less than 20 people. There was just the CEO was not a tech person. Everybody else was in dev. That, I built the marketing capability from the ground up for the business strategy, execution team, systems and processes, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of realized that many New Zealand companies within the tech industry actually needed that kind of skill set. So I decided to become a virtual CMO, which was kind of quite new in terms of concept 5 years ago. Having somebody contracting part-time for multiple companies, like in New Zealand, nobody ever heard of that beside the virtual CFO. But for the function, that was not a thing. And because I've got quite a strong passion about the New Zealand SaaS sector, and I believe it's really the future, of our country, where we're going to make New Zealand a better and healthier place and a wealthier place for everybody. I really wanted to kind of focus on this part of the market. And I sat down with one of my peers and friend, Jane, and I kind of explained to her, this is what I would like to do. What do you think? And she went, well, I did that a few years back, but it was called consultant back then. And I felt it was really lonely. What about we join forces? And we brought in another friend, kind of kept the conversation. The three of us really shared that passion for the New Zealand tech sector. And we decided to create Proxi, which was what Jane tried, a few years before. And I kind of spearheaded the Proxi venture. And we decided, that our mission would really be to build marketing capability for the New Zealand tech sector and New Zealand SaaS companies who are going global, because we realized there were a whole raft of shortfalls that these companies didn't foresee when they decided to leave the nest. And we secured our first Proxi client in May 2018. And today we are a team of 6 fractional CMOs and a creative specialist. And it's quite interesting. We all work at different levels of involvement. Like some of us work 3 days a week, some others work 5, 6. It's kind of a lifestyle choice for everyone in what we do. I thought that might be quite interesting for you to kind of understand, the kind of insights we had after doing this for 5 years. But we've got an amazing ecosystem in New Zealand, and very few, and Shona would kind of, surely second me on that, very few embrace marketing as they should. They just don't have the type of marketing support they need, either because they can't afford the right level of seniority, or the company is not appealing enough for actually very senior people to join, and, for them to attract what they should, for a full-time employee. Here, often the marketing person is often the last hire and often a very junior person. So they just don't deliver what the business needs. Often lack a plan, they lack a budget. And if there is not a junior marketer in place, then they would work with marketing agencies, but they can't really help, because unless you get somebody on the inside who actually knows how to direct the agency on what needs to happen, then they just fly blind and just don't deliver good work. So that's kind of, where we come in. So basically what we often say is we're not an agency and we're not consultants. We work from the inside, not the outside. So, we work as if we are full-time CMOs within the business. There is a strong backing from the CEO and the rest of the exec team. And the idea is to really leave the business as soon as we can, and not stay because we can. So, we kind of start off with a very defined plan. We roll up our sleeves. We just, get the execution done and build the capability. But we try to really create value fast. And we would work with a network of agencies and suppliers. So either with theirs or with ones we bring. But the idea is that they keep, they keep these suppliers when we leave. Right. And the team brings a really good depth and breadth in terms of, marketing is a discipline that is very wide. So you can't master everything. You can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it's really like we feel that, having a team really brings more value. Most of the time we work there around, the 9 months mark. We build teams from the ground up when we get the chance. It's not always the case, but we also coach, mentor, advise, and really get the business to understand what marketing can deliver for them. And we also tap into our collective expertise and bring somebody else from the team when it's actually required.
So tell me a little bit about that, Christelle, if I can. And look, maybe you're going to come to it now, but is there a lead from Proxi and then you kind of pull in the others or some of the others' expertise as required?
Yeah, well, let me get into that Proxi philosophy and I'll kind of pull that thread. So we often start with what we call an accelerator workshop. So it would be roughly a 4-hour workshop with 2 of the Proxi CMOs and key stakeholders from the business, where we kind of look at the business. We talk marketing at the end, but it's really a funnel approach to understand what the business is about, where it comes from, where it's going, sales, product, customer success marketing, like what the target audience is, what the business got to offer. So we can come up with a strategic plan and, really impactful recommendation quite fast. So the combined expertise of 2 of our CMOs really is kind of delivered exponential value. So that's the first thing, like, for example, at the moment I'm working with an AgTech company. I don't have any background in AgTech, but I'm a fast learner. But I've got one of my colleagues who is an AgTech expert because he's worked with many AgTech companies in New Zealand. So by bringing, our 2 expertise, we were able to really deliver a very solid strategy for that business going forward from a marketing point of view. And so once we've kind of delivered that first piece of work, we all have an agreement on this is what your fractional CMO is here to deliver. And we, that kind of scopes the engagement, how many people gets involved and what is like how many days a week we get involved. So that means like, some engagement when there is a need, for example, for a senior product marketer to come and join in the business because there is a big gap there, then I might bring somebody from my team who's got this skill set. Or if the company wants to go public, there are a few of us who've, worked for publicly listed companies before. So it's all about the mix and match. So you would have a more lead and you would bring somebody from the team who's got some level of expertise that's relevant to that company. And also sometimes we've got a creative specialist, so that person works with all of us across all the brand and the website needs that this business have. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And if we don't do the full-blown CMO 2.5 days kind of type of engagement, we also have kind of a startup program, which is called Proxi Smart. It's smaller workshops. They might be just, at the start of their journey, right? So smaller workshop, and it's a 12-week program with half a day a week of delivery and coaching of the team. One of my success stories is there is a company in New Zealand called Run.io. They do resource planning management. They started with us like maybe 4 months after launching, and now they just, they're just firing up. So we did a few smart programs with them, and I've been advising them all the way through. And, now they're starting to play in the big guys' court. So that's really nice to see. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's super helpful.
Sweet. And so once we've kind of delivered the impact that the company is looking, we look at exiting the business. So we've got, clear milestones and a clear understanding around what success looks like. And so we always look at replacing ourselves by a marketer within the business. So that might be a part-time person, if it's a small business, but that might also be like a full-blown CMO with a proper team. So we work around building that team. We've developed other services than just the fractional CMO over the year. So we've got a service that's called Proxi Upside, which is a hiring and coaching service where we work with a recruiter who goes and does a headhunting for us once we've kind of scoped out the type of role this business needs. And we hire the person. So we do all the legwork. We hire the person and put candidates in front of the business kind of for, culture fit assessment, but we've validated they can do the work and they get the right level of marketing skill set to be able to deliver what the business needs. And then we coach them for 12 weeks into the job. And we've done that with a good number of companies around New Zealand, including for example, Stretchens. We've recruited the CMO and their product marketing manager. They've been there for 2 years and they're also quite successful in that regard. We also do some team coaching and mentoring. So if there is a team in place and they don't have a very senior marketer, we have a coaching program. We also do some CEO advisory. And Jane is certified with Working Genius, which is a framework from Patrick Lencioni, which is a really, really insightful framework around building performing team based on your personal geniuses. And the last thing we've developed last year was an online course for junior to intermediate SaaS marketers to kind of teach them how to do a marketing plan and a marketing budget, because, it's 6 of us, we can't work with all the SaaS companies in New Zealand. And, sometimes all there is needed is actually showing them the way into doing good. So just to kind of reflect back, and that would be my last slide, and then you can fire all the questions you have. Over the last 5 years, almost, we're celebrating in June, we've worked with over 70 New Zealand tech companies. Often they many bring us back in different capability. Like, for example, there are companies, kind of started with us to do the strategy, and then we go away and they decide to enter a new market or build a channel partner program. So, they've got a trusted partner, they bring us back in. We've helped them raise around over 75 million New Zealand dollars, which, for our market is really good. We've recruited a whole raft of marketers. We're very well embedded within the SaaS ecosystem in New Zealand. We've delivered workshops, events, and webinars. And we also have an annual report, which is called the Serious About SaaS Marketing Capability Report, that we publish to give Kiwis a benchmark around, what their marketing capability is in regards to the whole market. So it's a really interesting tool to actually help them shift the dial around where they should be focusing their marketing efforts.
Amazing. Christelle, thank you. That's a seriously impressive company or organization that you built there. So look, I've got a bunch of questions and I'll kick off with those, but if anyone else wants to jump in at any point, please do. So a couple of things there that you touched on, particularly around additional services like recruitment. Do you get involved in writing the description, advising, or do you have actual, okay, now we go to market and find the people as well? Or do you have partners who deliver that?
Yeah, so we do the whole piece of work. We sit down with the CEO, and really have a really good business requirement conversation, go back to them with, this is the type of role you should be hiring for, this is the right level, based on the salary you're looking for, etc., and where you want to hire. So we put the JD together and the job ad, and we've got a recruitment partner who's been recruiting, in marketing and product in New Zealand, and is quite well known. So this person does manages the candidate funnel. He goes to market, with the inbound, and he also does quite a lot of shoulder tapping within his networks to help us find the right people. I also leverage quite a lot the pavilion community when I need to kind of find people who have experience, like strong experiences in the US or in Asia, in Europe, and they're quite keen to come and live in New Zealand. Sometimes it happens.
Nice. Yeah.
So Bob does kind of the first cut of the candidates, and then two of us would go and do the interviewing and the candidate selection. We often do some testing as well. And then we help the business find the right person for them.
And is that part of your kind of standard service, or that's an additional, do you take a recruiter's fee on top of that?
Yeah, that's in addition. It's a flat fee. So it's not a success fee, it's a flat fee.
Okay, interesting. But there's so many different areas that you touched on like that. Like that's a whole other business just there. Yeah, it's amazing.
There is quite a lot.
Yeah. In a similar vein, what about fundraising? Because I know Shona has been active in this space and using that as an additional service, while as some people aren't quite as bright like me have just been giving it away for free. So how do you approach that?
We also give it away for free. Now we do some work. There are companies with whom we've done work around like helping them create the content that's required for a pitch deck. But when we work in a business and the company is fundraising, because we are the acting CMO, we do what a CMO would do.
That's what they would normally do. Yeah. Interesting. Hey, Shona, do you just want to share your model? That's why we touch on that.
Oh, yeah. So the capital raising. So in my opinion, capital raising is one of the most essential things that you need to have going a startup business. So your co-founder will usually be the person who's raising that money, right? All they're doing is money, bringing in the money. That's all they do. That's their entire job. So if you have a company that can't do that because they don't have the connections or the ability, I will do that for them, but I've realized you're leveraging about 20 years of my contacts. And that's really where it is, right? It's like, it's not even just a skill, it's the trust that I've built. And so I'm bringing in this trust level, and I'm like, that's hugely valuable. And I'm not asking for equity from your business, which one of your co-founders, that's why you gave them equity, right? It's like your belief in them. I'm not asking for equity from your business, but I do believe that, a success fee not only drives my right behavior, it drives my right behaviors for them. And it's also, I think it's worth it, so I charge 2%. And I just got some wording from my attorney on that. Like they said, you should have in there anything that you do. And we gave a criteria as to what terminology meant, what are those activities? So we're very clear. And then they said, and it should last up to 12 months after your last engagement, just in case they try and terminate you before they close their deal.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my philosophy on it. I've had a couple of clients say, oh, I'm not sure about that yet, and maybe I don't need you for it, or we're already, and I'm like, that's fine. So in my agreement, I say specifically, I do not do any of these activities for you, so that they can't ask me, right? Because then they always ask me to do it.
Totally. Yeah.
And so the moment they ask me again, I'm like, oh, well, I'll have to send you over a variation letter with those terms back in it. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Because they've gotten to a point where they realize it is the most important thing for their business, and if they're not being successful in it, if they're successful in it, go for it. If they're not, then
they don't need you. Yeah. It feels like I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. Yeah. Interesting. And so, Christelle, back to the companies that you work with, there's a strong SaaS focus, it sounds like. But is there an average client? Is there kind of a stage that you seem to work with, or?
So that would be something interesting for another time, because I've got a whole analysis around that we've developed with Jane and Tim and the team.
Yeah.
But basically, we've kind of identified, we've kind of done a matrix to position our clients around how much funding they've got access to, no funding to a lot of funding, and what is kind of the pressure on them? Do they need to deliver outcomes fast or not? And so we've developed a quadrant model where we've got the pressure cookers, that would be your top right quadrants. They've got a lot of funding, but also a lot of pressure to deliver outcomes. They would be your VC-backed type of companies. Then you've got your easy streets to the left. They've got money, but they're not in a rush. Often in New Zealand, that would be services companies getting into the SaaS space, or hardware companies getting into the SaaS space. They get enough cash with their existing activity to fund this type of move. Then we've got the hard yards, which would be, they don't have money, but they need to deliver outcome fast. And then the last one would be the life support. They don't have money, they're not getting traction, but they're still here and they still need help to kind of try to move from into one of the other quadrants. But yeah, that's kind of like we've done a whole raft of modeling around this. It's quite interesting.
Nice. So it sounds like there's quite a range there as well, which is,
so
interesting.
There is quite a range in terms of where they're at, what they need, the level of funding, whether they've got product market fit, go to market fit. We also work, like I've worked with IoT companies, AI companies, like so many different industries, different markets. It's quite interesting, to kind of just be able to tap into all these amazing things that, New Zealand businesses create and bring to market. It's very interesting.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of times that a big part of your driver is developing the local ecosystem. So from a purely selfish point of view, are you open to working with companies across the ditch in Australia?
We've had that conversation many times with my founders.
Okay.
The right opportunity, we will, but our primary focus is New Zealand. With the right opportunity, I think we will, but we kind of leave it to the CMO's decision. So whoever gets a piece of work gets to decide whether they want to work with a company that's overseas.
Yep. And look, you've built this amazing company. It's starting to grow. Seems like it's starting to grow in different areas. You've got your online content. You're starting to do that piece as well. What's next? What's the future for Proxi?
Oh, there is quite a lot. Well, in the next few weeks, we're relaunching the websites because it kind of like the current one doesn't tell, the current story. We've tried quite a lot of things over the last few years. There are many things we kind of also stopped doing. So we just want to kind of refocus on what we truly deliver and the value we bring to the community. And really it's being really entrenched within the software as a service community and making sure that, we help grow as many businesses as we can and make them successful. So that's really our goal for the next few years, is making sure that we can onboard more customers and help them really build amazing marketing teams and deliver marketing campaigns and acquire many clients.
Nice. There you go. And conquer the world. So look, as you mentioned before, you started doing fractional before it was called fractional. It's a relatively new term. I think we're all aware. What advice would you have for people who are just starting out or about to kick off in their fractional careers? Because it is quite different from the full-time gig.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, my personal learnings would be we're stronger. So, we built a collective, but having a community is something that works also quite well. But, having people you can bounce off ideas, you can bring in to help you fill in some gaps that you might have, etc., I think is a really important thing. Having some, like building up your own frameworks that you can bring from an engagement to another, kind of, mastering your craft and being able to everything you learn into the next engagements, right? But depending on how you position yourself, like I don't like to get pigeonholed into one thing. I like to be able to try different things. But that's just me.
I picked that up.
And choose the companies you work with very wisely. Like over the years, I've worked with a whole raft of CEOs where in the first few meetings before we secured the engagement, there are signals that I missed. And then you kind of stuck, like you kind of working there for a while and they said the right thing, in the courting process, but they just don't exhibit the same type of values and behaviors, or they're just not aligned with the values they kind of, promote for themselves. And yeah, sometimes it's quite hard. Sometimes you feel that you can't win. You can't win all the time. So you need to be able to accept that not every engagement is going to be a very successful engagement. And you need to do everything you can to make it, but not always the same.
If it doesn't, need to accept.
Don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Like I went into this life because I want a certain lifestyle. So I'm also very mindful, to know what is my limits in terms of the number of days I worked and the variety of work I do. So I don't want to just do proxy waste type of engagement all the time. I want one main one and a variety of other programs that we offer. Whereas I've got other colleagues who would just go, and take 4 proxy way clients at the same time.
The same.
So you do you, like know who you are and what you like, and make sure that you work to your strengths.
I think it's a very varied community that we've seen so far, but the recurring theme, or one of the strong recurring themes, is people trying to build a lifestyle that they choose rather than perhaps the traditional path. So that's fantastic. I really like the framework piece as well. From what I've seen, the people who do it really well and are successful over a period of time have their own framework or playbook that they apply and kind of take that to market. Yeah,
but the continuous learning, I think, is really important as well. It's like, you might have your own, but also looking what's happening out there and enriching what you can bring to your clients is also very important, because you stay current. Like we all have an experience we bring from working as full-time employees somewhere, but this kind of deprecate quite fast if you don't try to keep learning. So our value as fractional executives is actually in the experience we bring and our networks, as Shona was mentioning, but also in our ability to stay current.
Totally. And I think you also touched on the variety of clients that you work with. That was, for me, an area that I was pleasantly surprised. Like, it's not a reason that I kind of kicked off the fractional way, but I had forgotten how much I loved working with a whole bunch of different companies at the same time. It really gets me excited and keeps me pumped up.
Totally agreed.
I've been hogging the floor. Any other questions from particularly Shona or Eliza or Kenny as a late entrant?
I'm quite interested in that online program because, you're always trying to figure out, how do I productize what I do? I'm always being asked to mentor or do something. I'm like, God, this is one-on-one. How many times do I have to repeat that? So I've been kind of just putting that round in my head. Like, so what did you, where did you launch that? Is it on your website, or do you have some sort of channel, or how successful is it? And yeah,
sure. Well, we launched it at this time last year, I think, and we kind of ran a beta program to kind of see if there was market fit and so on, with a small cohort of, I think we had 4 marketers. 4. And we worked through the program. So it's a mix of online teaching and workshops and a bit of coaching. So it's not 100% like online learning, but it's a way to deliver remotely.
Oh, okay. It's a remote thing, not like.
So there is a teaching component to it.
Okay. Yeah.
And we kind of shifting the model now to just go do the online teaching up front with a big group of people and make it accessible via one of the big communities for the people within this community. So we've got 3 of these workshops. So do the teaching bit and then hook onto it a remote coaching program to actually help them get there. You can't really do, like, we believe we make a difference if there is a coaching element to it. Like, you make it more relevant and more personalized for the company and for the person you're coaching as well, to where they're at, etc. So there is like a baseline of learning they all need to have. And then there is that individual coaching that is really important. So that's kind of how we've tweaked it. So we ran 3 cohorts last year, and I was just about to run a new one at the start of this year. when I kind of get too busy to get on with it. So we will reactivate it later this year. I'll let you know when we do.
So I was going to ask the $50 million question of like, how are you getting new clients? Because I've been doing this now and I would say I'm like a fractional product marketing director versus like a CMO. And then I'm like, I will do the strategy and then I'll also do the implementation of the strategy. So anyway, I've been getting work through network, the softer ways, which is the best way, right? But eventually you have to do other things, right? I just met with a guy who actually I invited to join this group. I think he was accepted. He just has to get on the Slack channel. And he was telling me all the ways that he's a paid advertising consultant. So he was telling me how he's marketing his own business and how I should market mine. It was extremely helpful. We're at the end of this call. It's probably a whole other series of calls, right? But I was just wondering if you do have things that have worked for you and if in the future, not right this second, but like you'd be willing to share.
Yeah, no, look, like I can share a few things with you as well. We've tried like advertising Proxi and so on. But I think that, that fractional executive concept is still very new, even though we've made, leaps. We've made the leaps in the last 5 years, but it's still a new concept. We are very well entrenched, and Shona would know, with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Calan Innovation, Kiwi SaaS, Morgo. Like we've got a really strong partner network of people who know we've worked with some of the companies they advise, and we've delivered results for them. We often get referrals this way, also from CEOs who work with us and we're very happy with the results, so they kind of refer us onto their peers and within the investment community. So we know all the VCs and all the investor groups. So they also refer us people because they understand the value we bring. But it's a lot of networking, and the value in being in a collective. That's something I forgot to tell you. Not everybody's an entrepreneur and not everybody's going to go, finding clients, right? Like I like networking. I go to many events. I've got people in my team who do this less because that's not their nature. But they are amazing at what they do. So it's not because that, you don't go fishing that you can't eat the fish. So we do it as a collective. And I think that's also quite a good way of doing it.
Sure. That makes sense.
I think that's like probably the hot topic though, isn't it, Liza? Like that could be a really good AMA question because like I'm currently, my roster is full, right? I'm like, I don't need any more, but I don't want to be doing day-to-day. I didn't get into this work to be doing like everyday work for companies. I want to go in and make an impact and help them and set things up and then leave. Like I just want the big stuff and then I'm gone. I kind of get bored, and
I'm the same way. I mean, that's why I don't think I ever wanted to go back to the salaried position. I just get bored. It's fun. And like, it's also regardless if the project is going extremely well or not as well, either way, in 3 to 6 months, you're going to be done.
Yeah, you have to. You've got to plan for the churn, right? Like
exactly.
there will be churn. So how do you do that? I'd like a topic on this. I mean, I have my theories on how to do it, and I'm obvious. You can see me doing them, and they're really soft, but they do kind of work. And then there's the channel thing. So from my perspective, I think it's about personal branding, networking, community like this.
Yeah, but see, Liza, like, building the Proxi brand and running that annual survey and then publishing the report is a really good way to show, to our community that actually, there is a point of reference and there is a solution. That's also really helped us, get more exposure. So yeah, the brand piece, whether it's personal branding or, building the brand of your business is really important.
I was just thinking the channel partner thing. It's really, I think it's key. Like I talk to VCs all the time, right? I'm always having coffees with them because they've got the need. They know exactly where the need is. And they make these promises of we're hands-on and they absolutely
they're
can't
not.
be.
Yeah.
But they need us, right? And they know they need us. So we're their part of their ecosystem.
Christelle, do you work with VCs much or at all?
Yes, we do. We do. We connected with all of them. I'm like, we get invited to their events and things like that. And we get brought in for certain companies they fund, but yeah, not all the time, but quite often. I would say that might be half of the engagement of the team.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, look, I think the demand side is obviously a super interesting topic for the group, and certainly something we should spend a lot of time on, I think. And one of the points that's really interesting is I've seen a few, as mentioned, they're almost forming kind of proto collectives, not quite as formalized as yours is, Christelle, but they have a trusted crew of people that they work with, and when there's a need for somebody, and it's the conversations that I've had, it's generally been outside discipline, where somebody goes in as a marketer, but then they see they need ops or product or sales, then they'll pull those people in, and then they have either a formal or an informal relationship there with those people to kind of monetize that element as well.
Yeah. But
again, it's a big topic.
Yeah, but to Shauna's point, like having faith in the people you put into engagement, whether they're part of your business or not, is really important. So that, like, the way we bring people into Proxis, we actually test them, like, we place them with a client and kind of closely monitor what's going on there. And if it's a great fit for us, and if they deliver high value and they've got the right skill set, then we're happy to bring them into Proxi. But there is kind of a testing phase that's really important to have as well, just to make sure that it's the fit.
Yeah, 100%, because it's your reputation that's placing them in there. So yeah, be curious how we can accelerate that. Perhaps maybe we could do some standardized testing within the group. Christelle, thank you. This has been just amazingly insightful and helpful, and I'm sure we could keep going for another few hours, but I want to be respectful of your time this morning. I know this is it for the day. So
yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
It was good meeting everybody.
Yeah, it was lovely to meet you all.
So fun. Yeah, great.
Thanks so much, Christelle, and thanks for organizing, Zach. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, thanks for organizing.
I was a little bit late, but nice to meet you guys really briefly. Thanks for organizing. See you.
Yeah, thanks for representing Canada, mate. We've got a lot of time going.
Hey,
Yeah.
Canada, new country. That's good.